Good afternoon. It's my honor and privilege to welcome a special person to this conversation. This exchange for media talk is with a person who shared a vision with me almost 10 years back. And here we are. He's been able to achieve that vision. It sounded like a very big, audacious goal, but he's effortlessly achieved it. Today, we are going to talk to him about life, entrepreneurship, digital transformation, digital marketing, philosophy, bucket list. Let me welcome Mr. Anuj Khanna Sohum, who is the founder, chairman, and CEO of affle. Affle is a listed entity. He was able to list it last year, and it had a spectacular opening. So let me welcome Mr. Anuj Khanna Sohum to this conversation. Anuj, welcome, and thank you for talking to Exchange for Media.
Well, hi, Anurag. Thank you for having me on this forum, and thanks everybody for joining in to listen to both of us today.
Anuj, tell me, how have been the last 5 months for you, both personally and professionally? How have you utilized your time, and what has kept you busy?
The last 5 months have been definitely challenging, and it has tested the core values which we have always had, both professionally and personally, at multiple levels. So when times get tough, that's when you truly get tested. And all along I have believed, and I have talked about this with our teams, that we are built to last, and we will fight through things together, and hopefully come out wiser and stronger. So in the last 5 months, I would say it's been a fairly interesting phase where we've been tested. And I'm glad that we are at the tail end of, I believe, what is the last leg of this COVID-19 crisis, and have come out strongly with compassion for all the stakeholders involved, whether it's the employees or the customers whose businesses got impacted deeply, and so on. So maintaining that right balance through this journey in the last 5 months has been the biggest test. Keeping all the employees not just assured that their jobs are safe and that their bonuses are still provisioned and will come, or keeping customers satisfied in terms of how we can still serve them well, keeping stakeholders believing in us that we will see it through. So all of these challenges we have dealt with, and I think as a team we came in much more strongly together. Similarly, in a personal life, I would say the amount of time we've spent with each other, locked down inside our homes, whether with children or in husband-wife relationships, has been a massive learning curve. And I wouldn't deny that it's been challenging at multiple levels. Not being able to be there for my parents who are locked in Lucknow in a similar situation, and feeling that nervousness, of not being able to get there in time in case it is needed. But, end of the day, you realize that it's about surrender. Not everything can be planned for, and you do your best in a dutiful manner. And you've got to overcome fear of uncertainty, or overcome your inability to achieve some of your desires. So just overcoming fear and desire, and just having a sense of surrender, yet being dutifully working hard to do what you can do best given the restrictions. All of these have been great learnings, and I think I've been thoroughly tested.
Anuj, thank you for being real. I remember I met you almost 9 years back in Singapore in a coffee shop. You suggested that coffee shop. It was a lovely coffee shop, and we had great coffee. But more importantly, we had a very long conversation. The gist of it is, you told me what is your own personal philosophy, how does it translate into philosophy at affle, and you shared that someday you list it and you build a big company which will have a big impact. You achieved that in the last 1 decade. Tell our viewers, how did it feel to list the company? What has changed since you listed the company? And how have the last 5 months for your business?
Yes, it was great meeting you in Singapore. Incidentally, the building where we met at that coffee shop was called the Red Dot, which is a very symbolic location, and our office was right next door. I remember every moment of our meeting very distinctly, even though it's been almost a decade. We've come a long way since then, and in this journey, what has helped us is the passion for pursuing excellence in product, passion for people, and keeping the team together through this journey and staying inspired. That was one of the very important guiding forces that kept us going to this moment. And also perseverance, not giving up, realizing that, hey, this is for the long haul. It's not a 100-meter sprint, it's a marathon, and any entrepreneur's journey would probably be similar. I don't think this is something unique, but never giving up in any difficult situation. There were multiple challenges that we went through in this time, especially I would say the whole IPO experience. It is way more uncertain as a process, way more beyond your zone of control. There's so many external factors that you depend upon. You've done everything right. You've built your company. You've done, all the compliances. But some banker would just tell you, sorry, the window is closed and you can't go public. You can't really figure out. I'm a computer engineer, and I don't really claim to have a great background in public companies or even investing. I've never been much of an investor myself ever. All I know is how to build Affle, how to build my own company. Just keeping that passion, perseverance, never giving up, seeing it through. I believe IPO happened to us. We didn't make it happen. It happened through us. It happened to us. And there's a sense of huge amount of gratitude. And I link it back to, where the foundations were, where the company was founded through the support of families in India. My own family investing, loaning us money, to believing in us to make it happen. So many team members, families believing. And therefore, I think even though having tried, should we list Affle in US or in Japan or in Singapore or in Hong Kong, I think eventually we listed on home ground in India. And that is something very dear to me. And when we got listed on that day of the listing itself, we had all the people who had supported us, including early investors, family members, ex-employees, ex-afflers, current afflers, everybody tuned in, clued in, and providing their good wishes and support, not only for that moment, but for the journey ahead. And so very blessed experience, most definitely. And not every such moment, which is, one of those peak moments in entrepreneurial achievement, where you run a company for 15 years with the same team, with the same vision, with the same name and brand, and then eventually achieve an IPO on home ground, and that to an IPO which was thankfully a very respectable outcome, with new members and so many investors joining in with their savings and aspirations. Somebody is investing in your company thinking that the returns will lead to paying for education of their children or the marriage in their family and so on. It's a huge responsibility to shoulder. So on one side, there was the closure of one chapter of a private company journey of almost 15 years. And on the other hand, it was a new beginning, as a public company, and a new set of responsibilities to shoulder and a journey to take forward. So, we felt ready to take it on. And I think we felt that that was the right timing for our company. We were mature enough to graduate to that responsibility in all respects of it. In the last 1 year since IPO, and particularly the last 5 months, as I mentioned, we have definitely gone through testing and trying times. And what gives me a lot of comfort is that we held our ground. We took care of all the stakeholders through the journey, not letting down any expectations or commitments. And then thankfully, in the month of June, when things opened up a little bit, we bounced back way stronger than what I would have ever forecasted before of what we would be in June or July. So I think the last 5 months have been a roller coaster ride. I almost link it to, I've been on some of the treks, most special one being Kailash Mansarovar twice in my journey, and at least both the times during IPO preparation phases, by the way. And when you go on that journey, you climb up and you climb down, and when you climb down, you always want to go back there again. And if you look at the, the 1 year journey of Affle being a public company, you see that mountain being created multiple times. If you look at the stock graph, and I look at that stock graph, I see, okay, we climbed the peak, we came down, we're climbing the peak again. You want to go back there again, you want to go higher. And most importantly, you want to stay there. Eventually, you want to stay there at that peak and, stay there as long as possible. And I think the personal quest as well as the IPO journey has been a great learning, realizing very quickly that, the world kind of goes around in circles, all these highs and lows. It's almost going to be a cyclical journey all along. But how do you maintain your centeredness, your calmness, and your conviction that, you can achieve it, you can consistently go out there and perform and do well in the present moment and let the future unfold, that you can't plan for that. So it's an interesting learning experience running a public company, I can assure you that, and we try our best to focus on each step at a time versus, looking at, don't, basically my simple view is don't look at the stock market, look at your work, look at what you can do and take it a step at a time.
Perfect. Anuj, I remember the first time I spoke to you, it's in your, I asked you, what is the, your Anuj Khanna, why do you have this Sohum? And you explained to me that is Lord Shiva. You talked about Mansarovar just now. Whenever I talk to you, I see a lot of spirituality, philosophy, a higher purpose, if I may use, in my conversation. I'm talking pre-IPO, I'm not talking post-IPO. Tell us, how can spirituality help an entrepreneur? How can spirituality, philosophy, faith in a higher being help you build something special?
Well, let me start on a lighter note, because philosophy must be taken lightly. Since we are in a media business, all of us, and a lot of people listening in the audience, let me share the first time I adopted the last name Sohum. So people ask me, why did you take on this identity? I said, and philosophically it was like kind of cool. It's not about Sohum, it's about dropping Anuj Khanna, that identification of, who you are, and we are kind of full of ourselves, especially with such stories of entrepreneurship, IPO, milestone. It starts defining who you are and everything you conduct yourself. The fun story is that, when the first press release of affle came out with the name Anuj Khanna Sohum, the press release said, Sohum said. And when I was reading that press release, I said, oh yeah, this is referring to me, because I had almost no immediate identification with that new recognition of family name that we took to give connection to the source where we come from fundamentally. And that was a funny thing. Or for example, if we went to an event and somebody announced, okay, now we invite Mr. and Mrs. Sohum to come on the stage. I'm like, okay, they're calling us, by the way, you've got to sort of wake up to that. So these are some unique experiences and moments which tell you that these are just names and a crazy identification that all of us associate with all of these sort of matters. Linking it to entrepreneurship, I think the main aspect that I want to talk about in entrepreneurship is it's really about creating value for others, whether it's your team members, whether it's your stakeholders, whether it's your customers or the larger ecosystem at play. How are you creating disproportionate value? And you've got to think beyond yourself, right? In almost all those cases. And when you think of that from a sense of duty, not from the sense of desire that I want to achieve this, I want to get there, but from a sense of duty, it allows you to focus on the present moment. And when you are focused on your entrepreneurial journey as a duty-bound entrepreneur with a greater sense of giving to other stakeholders, you almost certainly realize that you grow as an individual, as a leader within the organization, because everybody understands that you deeply care for your product, for your people, for your mission, for the stakeholders. So for an entrepreneur, it's absolutely, important to stay very grounded, very dutifully bound to, what you're doing, and almost going well above your own personal fears and your personal desires. And the only way to, I think, do it really well is to have a greater purpose. And that greater purpose has to be also about your own personal growth, realization of who you are, what your skills are. And by the way, my entrepreneurial journey started when I was a student in Singapore. I was only 18, 19 years old at that time. And I was discovering my own capabilities. I didn't know whether I will be coding for the product or I will be selling it, whether I'll be good at raising money or, convincing people to build their careers with my mission. And all of these things I have learned through entrepreneurship. So it's been a journey of self-discovery. And both these are very, very closely linked, right? The philosophy is all about figuring out who you are and what's your purpose in life. And I think entrepreneurship is a absolutely wonderful vehicle for any entrepreneur to, figure out your true purpose and, what you are truly good at and why are you existing. And I think it really extracts the most out of life. So to all entrepreneurs, I think uh, this is actually a fantastic journey. And when you go through deep challenges and you are tested as an entrepreneur, you don't give up and you come out strongly. It also builds, a sense of humility, because you realize that no matter how good you are, there are situations that are well beyond your zone of control or influence. And you build gratitude for your team and for so many things that happen around you and work out eventually.
Thank you so much, Anuj. And, the current situation, the last 5 months have clearly shown us that, a lot is beyond us. And, we need to surrender, so to say. We need to take all the worldly precautions, but at somewhere we need to kind of surrender to the God or whatever higher power we believe in, whether the universe. Coming back to you, your entrepreneurial journey and marketing and digital advertising, tell us, how did affle take birth, and tell us the significant milestones in your journey.
Sure. So affle was born in April 2005. It's now over 15 years of age, and it's a young, promising teenager. Affle was born out of a very simple insight, that the mobile screen will be the most viewed and the most valuable real estate in the world. It was April 2005. I had bought my first Windows Mobile O2 handset. And on that, there was this touch screen based, there was a start button on the side. And what you typically would see on your PC, it was now on my handheld device. There was an MSN Messenger on it. There was a browser on it, and everything was working beautifully. And that's when I realized that this is where the future lies. Now, the business opportunity was pretty obvious, that every advertiser, every company would want to have some presence on this screen to engage with the consumer. But then what was not so obvious for me was that for somebody like me who tries to switch off or change channels when ads come up, then why would somebody accept ads on this handheld device? So how do we solve this puzzle to make it consumer acceptable advertising on the handheld device? Was the simple problem statement with which we started on this journey. And we today call ourselves the consumer platform business. We are trying to transform ads into recommendations for consumers. And so that core focus on the consumer has not gone in the entire 15-year journey, and has only got strengthened, even though there were so many milestones in this journey where I remember distinctly, it was April 2008. I was getting married, and April end, we didn't have enough money in the bank account to meet the payroll, where half of my team was still invited, and that faith that, we will close the next round of funding within that month itself. So not only was I closing the biggest partnership of my life personally, but also juggling a very, very deep dynamics of, keeping your perseverance and faith that we will get by. And we raised a bridge round of funding in April 2008, which was very, very important for the company. And then by the end of 2008, there was already a financial crisis, one of the largest ones, in history until the COVID crisis perhaps would beat it if it were to be measured in a holistic manner. But, in that situation also, we raised a big round of strategic funding from Microsoft, which was a very significant moment for us, because we were raising it right in the thick of the biggest financial crisis known at that point in time. And even the people who worked on that Microsoft transaction, by the time December 2008, we closed the deal, by the time it was Christmas that year, a lot of those people were no longer in their jobs at Microsoft, because for the first time in Microsoft history, they had to retrench people due to the depth of that crisis and its impact. So I would say, we have been extremely hardworking, persevering through this journey, but also exceptionally fortunate at different times. And I've maintained this. I'm extremely hardworking. I believe I'm reasonably competent, but I'm also very, very fortunate and extremely lucky. And so those are some of those milestones where I'm trying to link it back to, it's something's happening to you well beyond your zone of influence, right? And those were those moments and milestones. Then in 2012 and 13 is when, almost 6 years ago plus, when we turned cash flow positive, EBITDA positive and cash flow positive. Those were significant milestones as well, because for us, that was a moment where we decided and made a commitment to ourselves that never are we going to go back from that moment, and we'll always continue to build a cash flow positive, sensible, financially sensible, capital efficient business. While a lot of my, say, peer entrepreneurs and competitors in this industry were raising humongous amounts of money. And it was almost difficult for me to defend that position with my own team. And they were saying, Anuj, why are we not also following the same path? And I said, look, by the time we go public, I want to make sure that the management team has deep enough ownership in the company. You don't want to dilute yourself all along. And end of the day, we are in the business and in the material world, you got to be profitable, cash flow positive. And all of this was already in our DNA since that time and beyond. Now, trust me, it was not particularly fashionable to be thinking like that at that time. It's only recently that people in entrepreneurship have started valuing cash flows and profitability more than rounds of funding, right? Till that time, the only celebration was, hey, we raised a big round of funding. So for us, since 2012, 13, we have been completely self-funded, cash flow positive, never dependent on sort of an external round of funding to decide our next course of action. And that discipline and that perseverance, step at a time, quarter on quarter, brought us to the maturity where we could go public in 2019. So that's the journey, key milestones. And all along, we have been a mobile in-app marketing-focused company with a disproportionate emphasis on consumer experience. And I think that's also something which is very unique, because most of us sometimes forget about the consumer in the business of wanting to just serve ads digitally and make money on impressions and clicks and whatnot. But we decided that we will only charge the advertiser if we deliver ROI and conversions. So, and if the consumer doesn't like something, there's no point pushing that agenda and pushing any further ads in that direction.
Okay. Thank you, Anuj. Since I've interacted with you in the past, I know that whatever you say, you implement it, you try to live it. So it's not something you're saying in an interview, which is very fun. I'm not saying others don't have sync in what they say and do, but I know that you also have sync in what you say and do. I want to shift gears. You talked about something which is important, profitability. You talked about cash flows. You talked about revenues being more than cost. It sounds so simple, cost should be lesser than revenue. But as you rightly said, people were focusing on how much money they've raised, and we in the media the headlines were how much money one has raised. That got you bragging rights, not how much profitable you are, how much ownership you have. But it was about, things that possibly should be secondary to ownership, should be secondary to revenues. Customers are the most important thing. I want to ask you, what are your top 3 lessons for entrepreneurs watching this?
Well, first lesson is never compromise on your core values. And by the way, it's important to know them. So before you enter into entrepreneurship, make sure that there is some level of definition there, or discovery and quest to know what your core values are, and then never compromising on that. Second is never giving up. If you start on an entrepreneurial journey, remember it's for the long haul. Like I said, it's a marathon. And in a marathon, you've got to, keep running and make sure that you're not giving up, and also not getting out of resources. You've got to be resourceful. You've got to conserve. There'll be moments where your breath is running out, where your stamina is failing you, or every part of your body is aching, but you keep going. You never give up. And the third is having a sense of surrender. So you work hard, you stay dutiful, focus on your present moment, whatever crisis or whatever opportunity there might be, you do your best in the present moment together with your team, but also with a sense of surrender, because there is way too much happening in this world. And something or the other can completely surprise you, both positively and sometimes shock you negatively. But you've got to, have some sense of surrender and belief that what you're doing, if you're doing it sincerely, not compromising on your core values, thinking long-term, running like I said, is thinking of it as a long marathon, then having that sense of surrender and belief that things will turn in your favor if you stay at it long enough. And that's been my journey all along. I mean, affle 15 years, I mean, there were many times where, one could have given up. There were many times where one could have taken an easier path, or even in the COVID situation, it's very easy. You want to cut your, it's not easy to stay profitable and cash flow positive and yet not, let's say, cut costs, right? I mean, there's a time you could say that, okay, March, the lockdown has happened. You can always talk to your team and say, okay, we're going to do some pay cut or some jobs will go. I think we've been fortunate and privileged enough to hold our fort, to not take actions, which basically passing on the pain, right? It was just like passing on the pain. If you can afford to keep the pain, hold it, see it through. I mean, better things happen. And for us, it's fortunately been that way. For certain other businesses, I think there was no option but to do it and go through a painful journey. But staying honest and authentic to yourself, and not just doing something because it's the easier option for that time. So stay the course, and hopefully things will work out well for everyone. If nothing else, you become a much better person, because end of the day, that's something that each of our journeys is about. I mean, it's not really about success and happiness. I can assure you, success and happiness are completely overrated, because once you achieve the success and you have that moment of happiness, then what? then something else has to be successful and you become happy. So I think you've got to be peaceful and calm and take it as a journey, a step at a time. It's been a lot of advice there, but maybe more than 3 points, but I wanted to say all this to whoever
You're
is.
very young to say all this, right? I mean, I know what your age is. You're very, very young to say all this. So you've achieved a lot in your journey till now. And you still have a long way to go. And if these are your values that have got you here, there's a traditional saying, what got you here won't take you there. And you use the word built to last, which is a book that I read 25 years back, possibly, or 20, more than 25 years. I was in a business school more than 25 years back. So tell us, if there was a book on Anuj Khanna Sohum, what would it be called? Trinetra. What would it be called?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not. Oh my God, this is a difficult question. Built to last title is already taken.
I was talking to Harsh Mariwala in the day for Business World, and his book is coming out. It's called Harsh Reality. Harsh Reality. His name is Harsh Mariwala. So it's Harsh Reality. That's the book it's called. And, my book is coming out. It's called 8 Days a Week.
Well, I would say I don't have a very crisp title for this or a tagline.
But we talk offline on that. We talk like this. Now, marketing has been totally transformed by digital. And last 5 months, COVID has become the chief digital officer for all corporations, businesses, enterprises. The word digital transformation means different things to different people. And in the life cycle of a company where they are, digital transformation could mean very different things. Tell us, what's your view on the way digital transformation has got accelerated in the last 5 months? What are the changes you see in corporations, in the way CMOs are looking at customers? Give a sense of what you feel.
Yeah, I think the job of the CMO, thinking about customers or consumers, whichever way one looks at it, is a tough one. And in these times where disproportionate level of shift is happening in terms of how accelerated the adoption curve has been towards, let's say, the mobile screen, potentially to the point of it being even unhealthy at an individual level. Even for myself, when we look at how much screen time has gone up in this period of time for all of us, when you're working from home, or otherwise, all interactions have become digital, on calls, on video calls, on, everything is somehow happening through this smart screen. So every form of media, whether it is, especially in the media business, all traditional media, whether it's a newspaper, are now in apps, TV is on connected TV, on devices. I mean, out of home experiences are also increasingly, everything is becoming more and more digital and happening on this private, handheld, always on, always carried device. So what I see here is a massive shift, especially in emerging markets like India, and in where the demographic profile is so skewed towards youth, or possibly another big segment is, let's say, rural segment, right? Whether because of the youth having their demographic preferences of working on their private devices, or the rural areas where due to affordances, they can only depend on that one device they can invest in and do everything from there. The two big demographic segments are completely to be reached only on this device. So the job of the marketer is now to really embrace this reality, because the writing is on the wall. We have no chance to continue on our inertia on staying married to traditional media with the bulk of our budgets going there. In a lot of the developed markets, digital is already a majority of the total advertising spends, like more than 50% in some of the markets. Whereas in India and emerging markets is still well behind that, right? I think we are still in the plus minus 20% range. And I think this shift will be a very significant shift. And while the writing was always on the wall, I think what COVID has done has accelerated this very, very quickly. So all initiatives, whether the initiatives of the government or the initiatives of the competitive forces in the telecom sector, data prices coming down, the need for, using digital for payments or otherwise across the board. And now we are clearly seeing, a massive adoption coming from health tech for mobile. I've seen that in our own company, the education tech, health tech, fintech, some of these categories are high impact categories, right? Because it's also bridging the gap of access, right? Bringing education in a very affordable way to everybody who can afford at least a device and connectivity, right? Bringing healthcare from experts to a very efficient method in a cost-effective manner, bringing the best advice to anyone, anywhere, as long as they have a connection. And I think these have huge social impact. And we are playing a very small part in enabling that, with the lens of enabling advertising on it. But we feel more satisfied about our own journey, that we are now not just about, entertainment or gaming or e-commerce, but we are taking it deeper to more essential services, right? And these sectors are coming in a big way. So if anybody is a marketer across these segments, would be living this reality now, in a big way, that how do you adopt mobile? What do you do on these smart screens? And well beyond that, to other connected devices. And so, that's my 2 cents to say that this trend is here. And the sooner we embrace and adapt to this, the easier, the path to ROI in each of the businesses for the marketers would be.
Brilliant. Anuj, there are lots of questions coming on the Q&A chat, some coming through the Facebook thing. I'll bring all of them on, just reading them. I'll bring all of them on the screen. But I just wanted to ask you 2 more questions.
Anurag, if I may interrupt you, I just thought of the title of my book. Is
Yes.
that okay?
Yeah, go ahead. I want to write it.
Inspired by your questions, I would say, who is Sohum?
I like that. Actually, it's very predictable. From my conversation, I'm not surprised. Who is Sohum? Yeah, I like
right.
that. And it's intriguing. So it's good. Good. For our viewers, Sohum is Lord Shiva. That's the Sohum. But here he's talking about who's he, So I think it'd be an interesting read. Coming back to advertising, last 5 months, overall advertising has come down. A lot of brands were on pause. But 2 things are auguring well for the business ecosystem. One, the festive season is 3 months away. Diwali is 3 months away. The festive season starts in some time. Second, IPL is happening. So tell us, Do you see advertising coming back? And say if brands spend 100 rupees over the next 3 months, do you see a lot going in digital and mobile?
Yes, if I may say, from our very limited vantage point for affle, I did allude to that earlier, that in June and July, we have seen advertising, at least for us, has come back strongly enough for me to say that had COVID not happened and somebody asked me in January 2020 that would you be satisfied with this kind of outcome in June 2020, I'm just talking about the month because April, May were clearly locked down and, and a very different experience. But for us, for mobile marketing, for what we do, it's fully back to the extent where, I would have taken it even if somebody told me that this would be the outcome without COVID. So I think this is a very good position to be in. And I'm very optimistic that the consumer confidence, and as you mentioned rightly, around IPL, around the festive season would come back with, hopefully with a vengeance, because there is a lot of people waiting to get out there and do more and live normally and just express themselves, whether through participating in the economy or by, even through consumption. So all of this will definitely lead to a bounce back effect, and it should be strong enough. So the most of the businesses that are dependent on advertising or enablement through advertising should definitely see a much better time. The tough phase is behind us. It should only get better. The question is how quickly and how much. It's not whether.
Brilliant. Let me ask my last two questions and then I'll bring in all the audience questions. My first question to you is, you have a co-founder. I would never be your co-founder because my name is Anurag and not Anuj. Okay. So tell us how, in this world of collaboration, you collaborate internally, you collaborate externally. How important is collaboration? And tell us the collaboration with your co-founder, Anuj. I can say it because in Exchange for Media, I have a co-founder in Naval and we are friends, so it's very easy to work. Our relationship dates back to 29 years. He was my junior in the engineering school, and I bought him a lot of free beers, and that's how he became my friend. So tell us, how does collaboration work? And dare I say, the co-founder dynamics is very important for a company. There is always, while people are equal in a lot of ways, but there is always somebody, one of the co-founders who leads the company, who sets the vision. So tell us a bit on that.
Look, when I started affle, I had no advertising experience, and I was a tech entrepreneur. I had 2 successful startups, building the products, the teams and customers and cash flows. I knew all of that, but I had no advertising experience. And so at the very early days, I was looking at, who should we get on board? Who will complete us? And I quickly thought of Anuj Kumar, but I didn't approach him direct and said, okay, because he and I were in school in Lucknow in St. Francis College when we were 6 years old till the age of 16. We were in the same school, same class. Given the names are also Anuj and Anuj, the roll numbers were just 1 number apart. We have lived through all exams of school together, sitting right next to each other, but keeping our core values intact. And we were always doing very well, but in different subjects. Okay. In any case, Anuj was already working at ESPN at that time. So I was in Gurgaon. I stayed at his home and, I said, would you like to come on board? And the next day, I think, or within a week or so, he resigned from ESPN, and the rest is history. We've been together. He joined us in April 2006, and it's been a fascinating journey all along. And we've been longer together in affle than we were in school together. So, this is really quite special. Collaboration is absolutely important, and collaboration extends in an inclusive sense beyond the 2 or to so many others, because there are at least, I would say, 10 people at affle today who have been in the journey and have run through the journey with a sense of being co-founders and entrepreneurs, either because they were running their own companies and had very long journeys there, and those companies merged with affle, but we have recognized that, hey, they are also co-founders. And in fact, the most important thing in any relationship is how do you keep it fresh? How do you not let it become stale? Whether it's your relationship at home with your parents or with your siblings or with your children or your wife and your co-founders? How do you keep it fresh? So for us, we've always treated it as a new beginning, each year, each moment. And we just started a new journey. affle 2.0 is what we call it. And it's for year 2020 to 2029. It's a decade-long journey. And it's a new journey. And there are a lot of co-founders in the journey, including those who have just joined us through the acquisition. So how do you become inclusive, where the people feel that we belong here, we own this, this is our journey as much as it is theirs? Because it's very easy for people to think this is about Anuj and Anuj, right? And then we'll never be able to come in their inner circle because they have so much history together. I mean, over 35 years of history together in different formats is kind of hard to beat, but yet keeping it inclusive and very, very professional. So we have disagreements, we have arguments, and they are open. It's not like Anuj and Anuj will always appear the same together. So we have very, very strong open culture.
That would be the title of your book.
Which one?
Anuj and Anuj.
Okay. All right. That could be maybe the title of Anuj Kumar's book.
Yes. By the way, I did ask him the same question I asked you about 10 years. I think he was the one who set up the meeting, or at least he was instrumental.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
I remember. And Anuj is a fine guy. I've met him a couple of times. So beautiful. I like this. Now you achieved so much. You achieved, life without attachments is the life that Shiva lives, Sohum lives. You build a plan for 2029. So isn't there a contradiction?
No, there isn't.
Explain that to me.
So one thing is, if you plan a long journey, just imagine if you have a long journey to plan, some people will carry a lot of baggage, right? Let's pack this also. Let's plan that also. It's a 10-year journey. Let's take a big baggage. If you plan a short trip for a day, you'll not, carry a lot. Now, and when you plan for a long, complex journey, which may have all kinds of ups and downs, you must travel light without baggage. And if we can do that, then I think you can stay fresh and not get bogged down with it, because now, you're not carrying heaviness with you. So how do you stay light? How do you focus on what you have to do? Focus on the present moment without having, and then surrender the rest of the journey, because you're going to take a step at a time. You're going to go around a big circle of 10 years and, it's going to be a massive journey. But at the same time, traveling light is very, very important, and focusing on the present moment, on what you got to do today, taking a step at a time. So I know it's sounding ironic. You're planning for 10 years. By the way, my plan is...
It goes back. You said right at the start, be in the moment. Give it your best right now. You're talking to me. You're fully in it.
That's correct.
Yes. So I think just if you do what you need to do today, right, tomorrow and day after automatically takes care of itself. So, I don't think there's a contradiction.
So there is a guiding purpose, by the way. It's beyond affle 2.0. We want to build an institution that lasts well beyond our lifetimes. So going public, people ask me, why do you go public? It's so complicated. You could report every quarter. You got to, everything is in the public forum and so on. And I was like, look, we want to build an institution.
And the share price movement may impact you emotionally.
Look, most of the people get used to it. I think most of the people get used to it. Anybody who's running a public company, for some time, I'm sure they've all got seasoned and used to it. Now, what I'm saying is building an institution for a lifetime, well beyond your lifetime. And that's the sort of guiding purpose and principle. And one of the bucket list items that, is going to take a whole lifetime to do. And that's what we're trying to do at affle.
Brilliant. My last question before I bring you. You've done everything. Is there a bucket list that Anuj Khanna Sohum has? If there's one, why don't you tell the list or some items of the list?
Well, I had only one item which I was just kind of talking about, that, building affle into an institution which will be well beyond the founders, well beyond the lifetime of the founders. So building a culture that will, sustain and go through all forms of technology disruptions that are yet to happen. So far technology has been simply an enabler. enabler of how we are experiencing life and the environment around us at a physical level. But now what's happening with technology, with artificial intelligence, where it is now taking a role almost next to us as humans as an equal and saying, hey, I can make decisions for you. And I can make decisions for you potentially better than what you can do. And so many forms and shapes, this is going to disrupt how we see the economy today. Will make it potentially safer, more efficient, and very, very different than what all of us can imagine today. So given all of that is yet to unfold, I think my bucket list there is to just build a very solid culture of innovation, a culture of, building an institution, which will hopefully see through and negotiate through all these very, very disruptive, significant changes that are ahead of us. So I don't know whether that qualifies as a bucket list, but that's what I'm trying to do every single day.
Brilliant. Priyanka, let's bring in all the questions that are being asked. Let me take my first question to you. It's from Mary Bissonette. Please tell us what your greatest purpose is. I think Mary, he's already told, but you can reiterate it.
Well, maybe I'll say it in a different way this time. One simple insight that I have figured out about life, and this largely is true for almost everything, by the way, is that everything around us is kind of somehow going in its own orbit, which is generally circular. So now you can choose to be going around in circles in life, or you can find your centeredness and experience what's happening around the circle, or even if you're going through the circle, at least try to be centered and experience what's happening. And what I'm trying to also do with respect to my professional achievement and purpose is that how do we enhance that orbit for affle to make it much more impactful, much more global, much more bigger and inclusive and all encompassing, so that we can make much bigger impact around the world. So the professional goal is that, but if you could visualize this, that everything is going around in circles and it doesn't make sense to always be in the orbit. You've got to find your centeredness, because once you anchor yourself in that, that's when you can build a much bigger orbit around you.
Brilliant. There are more questions. They are little narrow questions. They're on the business of advertising, marketing, media. How advertisers and agencies have embraced rapidly to the evolving digital advertising and customer engagement system. What's your assessment?
Well, I think it's still work in progress. And what has happened so far in most companies, large or small, is that we are using technology merely as an enabler. There are things we want to do, and we think if we do it with technology, it'll be more efficient, it'll be cheaper, it'll be faster, it'll be better. So it's mostly being used as an enabler. And what we are now heading towards is that every single business, large or small, is going to be using some form of artificial intelligence, machine learning, which is not in the physical sense, but in the sense of decision-making, strategizing, and, driving technology, leading to not just driving your cars or your aeroplanes, but actually driving your business strategy and driving your decision-making based on machine learning and AI. And I'm not talking about this in the sense of, robotics and so on. I'm talking very simple sense that whatever data you have in the organizations today, most of the companies haven't yet graduated to applying deep learning and enabling automation of some decision-making or predictive modeling, using technology. And this is not difficult or expensive to do. It is possible to do it in simply, and it is maybe just that mental block, We are all used to using tools and technology in the way it's kind of easy. Okay, let's use it for chatting, communication, customer engagement, touch points, CRM, and so on. But there's much more value still left to be extracted. And I think we are heading towards that dimension where technology and digitization would not just be an enabler, but actually a driver for strategy for most businesses.
Brilliant. These were two questions that Upasna Upadhyay asked. Kamalji Sareen is asking, have you experienced failures and what have you learned from them?
Yeah, I've experienced failures for sure. And I think what I have learned from them is to not give up. in the face of failure. At any crisis situation, true failure would be to not learn from it, to not outgrow it, or to not persevere through it. So when you accept it and say, okay, this is the end and that's it, but of course it's iterative. So there could be a feature of a product that you build which is not working. There you've got to use the philosophy of detachment. You really thought it would work, but it doesn't work. So it's about accept it, move on, do the next thing. But how do you learn from each instance and iterate and make it something better and persevere through it? And in fact, I would say, learning through failures, whether they were on products, whether it was at an ecosystem level. I've seen big failures in the journey so far. Our entire business was built on the ecosystem of Nokia and BlackBerry from 2005 till 2009. And when that changed, every relationship you have invested in those aspects on your product suddenly went away. And you've got to reinvent yourself differently, but you've learned so much through it. So you just keep on persevering and applying yourself all over again. And entrepreneurs are really good at it, building from scratch again. While you say build to last, but when something gets demolished and destroyed in the process, because at an ecosystem level, something dramatically shifted, how do you build all over again?
Yeah, that's where the Hindu trinity comes. You have to be Shiva, creative destruction, to be able to create, which is Vishnu, and then be able to preserve. So, Ashok Chaturvedi is asking your attitude to risk. I mean, his question is in a way that I have to rephrase it. It says, advice risk. Do you mitigate risk or take it head on? So you have to, how do you calibrate the amount of risk you take?
The most adventurous people in the world, whether they are in the world of sport, adventure sports especially, I think are the best risk managers, right? When somebody looks and says, oh, this is crazy. I mean, how can you be doing this? Well, when you prepare for risk, when you work diligently to prepare for every possibility and try to cover it, and you've really worked hard at it, your confidence grows because you've covered your ground. And that's what entrepreneurs are intuitively very good at, right? It may seem like, wow, you're a big risk taker as an entrepreneur, but it's backed by great preparation. And so what you may see as risk, like
preparation mitigates the risk.
It's like COVID situation and you're going ahead and acquiring a company in Spain, you're going ahead and acquiring a company with, which is AppNext or MediaSmart. Now you're investing in other companies within the 5 months of lockdown. We accelerated our, acquisitiveness or investment strategy because that was the best time to negotiate value.
Valuations are more attractive than they ever were. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, risk is a matter of perception and preparation. If you perceive the risk and you prepare for it, you can take it head on. But I'm nowhere advising somebody to be foolhardy. My daughter climbs the tree in front of my house all the time. She's only 5 years old. And the people in the balconies up there shouting, hey, somebody save this girl. My daughter looks at, I am safe. I know I'm okay. And I believe her because I know she has prepared and she has done it and she's okay. But anybody else seeing it would say, this father is, too much of a risk taker and this 5-year-old is foolhardy. That's not the case. I think there is, once you have perceived things, prepared for it, you can go ahead and take the risk head on.
Okay. Beautiful answer. I love it. Kamaljeet Sareen has a follow-up question. How do you handle adversity and self-doubt?
Well, I wouldn't deny that self-doubt is something that every entrepreneur or anybody, every individual has to deal with at some point in time. And it could be in any context. It could be in context of your profession. It could be in the context of your personal relationships. And the only way I know how to deal with it is with the sense of surrender and having the faith that every tough phase must give way to a better time. As long as you don't give up and you hang in there, suddenly, time has a way to heal and the time has a way to provide perspective. Where the same crisis where you think of giving up in self-doubt, look 10 years forward, you look back at it, you can laugh at it and say, it wasn't really something so intense. So having that larger perspective, but when you are in that moment where self-doubt creeps in, it's not easy. And that's where you've got to rely on your core values, perseverance, surrender, whatever works for you. But if you hang in there long enough, definitely the situation changes. Does every situation changes for sure, and many a times for the better.
Brilliant. Sachin Sharma is asking a very simple question. I would be interested in knowing, how did you name the company affle?
Well, multiple answers to that, but a short answer in the context of media business is that fundamentally what affle was doing was bringing advertising onto the mobile screen, and therefore making mobile apps having a real business model to become free for consumers, and in that sense affordable for consumers, right? I'm talking about a time where data plans were not cheap, where mobile internet was not cheap. And in 2005, when we conceptualized affle, we said, fundamentally, what are we doing? What are ads doing? Ads are subsidizing something for the consumer, which they want to consume, whether it's content, whether it's games, apps, experiences. And so it is AFF is affordable, and LE is for mobile, the last two digits of mobile, and that was affle. But there was another connotation in Singapore, which is where I was since I was at the age of 16, and I came to study at Raffles Junior College. So the word Raffles in Singapore always meant the best. Whether it's the best school or in business class, there's a Raffles class in Singapore Airlines.
I remember I asked you where your office is, and you said Raffles, right?
Yeah, it was in that area near Raffles Place. But if you drop R and you drop S from Raffles, you get affle. And that was another reason to name it. And by the way, preemptively, let me also answer. Many people think it's a play on the word apple. It's not. And for whatever it is worth, affle started in April 2005, which is well prior to any plans announced on by Apple on iPhone or iOS or mobile. So, we definitely don't see that as a connect, and it's completely our own creation. It was a 5-letter word, and by the way, the domain name was available, and that's an important criteria as well.
Thank you. I totally trust you. Yash Punchi is asking, how is affle's technology different from other companies such as the Trade Desk, Criteo, etc., in terms of delivering value for consumers and advertisers?
Great question. So if you look at the technology or Trade Desk, let's say in terms of technology, things might be similar. But in terms of our business model, Trade Desk is basically saying that they're giving you a software which helps you to trade. And trade what? Trade in the commodities of buying impressions or clicks or data, right? And what affle is saying is that our business model is different. We are saying that we are on the CPCU business model. You don't have to pay for the impressions or the clicks. You don't have to pay for the data or the technology. You only pay us when you get value, when you get ROI. And so the business model is different. The business is also being executed in different geographies. 50% of our business comes from India. And therefore, the data that we have is about Indian audiences. We are going deeply vernacular, focused on the indigenous languages in India to understand the consumer and communicate with them much better. We are verticalizing our platform and products for the various industry verticals that we serve, about top 10 industry verticals that contribute 90% of the revenue. So the geography is different. The consumer is different. The verticals we are focused on are different. So all of that combined with a different business model makes us very, very unique. And the competitive advantage lies in being able to work in the most difficult unit economic markets like India or Indonesia or Africa or LATAM or emerging markets, broadly speaking. The unit economics is really tough in these markets. And if you can run a scalable, sensible, financially sensible business with bottom line sensibility here, it becomes a competitive advantage, because for the kind of cost structures, let's say a Trade Desk or the Criteo has, it's going to be very tough for them to really compete at scale in emerging markets, is my opinion. And we'll see how the world unfolds, but there's a long way to go. And right now, we're not fighting head on with these guys in our markets.
Okay. Aditya Roy is asking, impact on Apple depreciating IDFA for brand advertiser. What solutions do companies like affle have to target high ARPU and iPhone users?
Sure, great question. Like I said, we focus on emerging markets very deeply, and most of us in India would know that India is, disproportionately over 95% an Android and Android-based market. It's not iOS-based market. And that's true largely for over 95% of our business. It's completely in the Android ecosystem. Having said that, however small the impact would be to affle per se, but the impact to the industry is large, right? In developed markets where there are companies who are our peers whose business is, let's say, 50% anchored on iOS ecosystem, they must be deeply nervous. The attribution partners in the ecosystem whose big part of the business is focused on iOS-based revenues should be deeply nervous. And everybody is figuring this out at this moment. And for us, because of this change being, let's say, simpler to deal with, because we are insulated just by the fact that we are focused on emerging markets, we are able to take a fresh look at it, look at how do we recalibrate to this change, bring out products, bring out the right kind of knowledge which will empower the customers to deal and embrace this change, because the change is already there. The writing is on the wall. This is how it's going to work. So we can react very quickly and go to even developed markets, offer solutions to advertisers and marketers to help them through this, to navigate this through. And I think affle would be able to make some impact there, even though that's not our number one agenda. But it is an opportunity that's come our way to respond, while the rest of the competition is perhaps grappling with this in a much deeper way to figure out how the world would be. And longer term, what this means is that we have the benefit of hindsight. By the time such changes happen on any other part of the ecosystem, affle would have learned, seen what happens, how to maneuver through it, and be completely ready for it.
Thank you, Anuj. We've taken all the questions that the audience has asked, shows the level of engagement from the quality of the question and the quantity. We have about 11 questions. I can't take more. So let me ask you my last question and let you go. What are the top 5 technology trends that you would like to forecast, 1, 2, 3, whatever, that will transform businesses and marketing?
Okay. So in terms of technology trends, I mean, whenever we talk about the future, it must be taken with a disclaimer that one doesn't know how soon and when and exactly in what form and shape. But let's start with an individual perspective for each one of us who's on the call today. I definitely see one clear trend, which is going to go towards wearable technology gadgets, not just handheld devices and an extension of our senses, but actually wearable technology experiences, or even maybe a more scary phenomena, which could be even embedded, technology experiences within our physical sort of body, and seeing those as extensions, integrated experiences that we will have beyond the 5 senses to use technology to enhance how you experience the world. That is looking very clearly like one trend towards individual sort of gadgets and so on. The second is, let's say, artificial intelligence related, the physical sort of manifestation of that, which is in the form of, say, robotics, right? Where you see not just humans around the world, but you also start seeing more AI-driven machines, which will look and behave in ways which are similar to us, leading to potentially smarter homes or smarter serviced homes, smarter workplaces, as well as integrated, let's say, automated transport experiences. And I'm not just talking about self-driven cars or planes and so on, but many other sort of machine-driven experiences in the world powered by robotics. The third area I would talk about is, because you're talking so much gadgets, right? Where's there going to be so much energy to charge them, or the batteries and sustainability, because gadgets get old. How do you take them out? Or when you embed them in your body, how do you replace them? There'll be, recycling would be an issue. So sustainable energy solutions and innovations that will come, that will solve the issue of battery life, make, cleaner energy possible, cheaper, cleaner energy. So sustainable energy related innovations and technology is another trend that I can clearly see happening. More in the sense of, let's say, media, because all of us are there. So, in terms of media, I would say there are some clear trends which are already experienced even today. Deeper online and offline journeys for consumers, right? So everything that we do today, online, as well as what we do offline in the real world, you'd see a lot more integration of these online and offline experiences. It's certainly going to happen and disrupt the way retail experiences happen today offline, or even how e-commerce experiences are happening online. It'll also change how we experience education online and offline, healthcare online and offline, and so on. So there are several areas in the industry where the online and offline experiences will get more and more integrated. So that's a clear trend. And the fifth area, which is, let's say, another very, very big trend, in my opinion, is entertainment. Whether it is live events or whether it is gaming, creating enhanced virtual experiences where the lines between what's experienced by all of us today as the reality as we see it, and the virtual reality that we will be experiencing ourselves with ourselves placed in those sort of virtual experiences that would happen, whether it is for gaming or whether it is for education, learning, or whether it is simulations. It could be even impacting how we travel around the world and experience places, or even live events. And you can be in your safe sort of silo of your home and just be indoors, but still experience a live match at an IPL perhaps, almost like you're sitting in the stadium. So things like that, where the lines between virtual reality and the physical reality as we experience it today will start getting blurred. And it'll open, all of these trends will open new job opportunities, new sort of advertising, media opportunities in ways that I can't necessarily visualize. But since it is talking about future trends, these are the 5 which I would like to, conclude my sort of vision with respect to what's happening, and where I clearly see, these trends leading to already clear signs that this is happening now, and it's not totally futuristic what I'm talking about. I think this is all very real, and today technology has made enough progress to give us a taste of all of this immediately, while it will become mainstream as we go along.
Thank you. And when do you think we'll achieve singularity? Will it happen in 2034? Will it happen earlier? You said, you put a disclaimer that no one can be 100% sure. We don't know the future. But what's your sense? Singularity will happen faster than you think?
Well, it is definitely moving very fast. Will it be good enough is what we are questioning. It's not whether. And what do you define as good enough? I think it's already good enough to, start impacting some aspects of it. It's definitely going to happen. I think a decade is a good enough time to perhaps take for now, and then maybe we can talk again, 10 years from now and say, where it is at that moment. But I think within 10 years, you would start seeing, various forms of it in real life experience.
Brilliant. I want to thank you for this lovely conversation, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm sure all our viewers will enjoy, and through our various platforms, we will repurpose and share it with you. Before I let you go, what is that one thing you tell yourself every morning, like a favorite thought, saying, song, to pep you up? Like, I listen to this song called One Moment in Time by Whitney Houston. And there's this song from Burning Train, the movie I watched when I was 8 or 10 years old. Teri hai zami, tera asma. When I'm feeling a little low on energy or get bothered, I surrender, so to say. So what is it that you do when you talk to yourself that kind of makes you calmer, hopeful, re-energized? I'm sure you chat Om Namo Shivaya. So I'm asking beyond that.
Absolutely. I think, something that we do as a family a lot, and we're trying to build this as a consistent habit, is to get up and go and look at the sun and express some gratitude that there is light, and the darkness has ended, and this is another day, and that's it. It's as simple as that. So we have a little song for it as well, which our family has come up with our own tune for it, and maybe I'll sing it for you all another day.
Thank you so much, Anuj Khanna Sohum. It's been a fantastic journey that you've had. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I've seen you talk about conviction. I've seen the conviction 9-10 years back, and I can see it now. So we wish you luck, and I look forward to reading your biography called "Who is Sohum?" and figure out who is Sohum. But on a very serious note, I'm sure everyone who was on the video conversation benefited from it and will learn from your lessons that you shared today. We wish you luck, and we look forward to having a conversation with you again soon. Thank you, Anuj.
Thank you, Anurag. I totally enjoyed the questions, and it's been a wonderful experience for me as well. Thank you.
Thank you. You're very kind and gracious. Thank you, Anuj. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Batra. Thank you, Anuj.
Thanks.
Priyanka ma'am, shall I end it?
Yes, yes.